Chapter 11. The verbs and their kinds. A verb is a word which tells about an action or activity of a person or a thing. It expresses an action done by the subject. The man killed a snake. What the state of the subject is? The dog is dead. What is possessed by the subject? Alice had a toy. In these sentences, killed, is and had are verbs. They tell us more about the subject, the man, the dog and Alice respectively. A verb is an important part of a sentence. There can be no sentence without it. Kinds of verbs. Verbs are of two kinds: transitive verbs, intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs. A transitive verb is a verb which requires an object to complete its sense. Read the following examples. Dilip likes mangoes. Leena sings a song. She runs a restaurant. Objects in transitive verbs. Objects are of two kinds: direct objects, indirect objects. Direct object. Direct object is a noun or pronoun that receives the action. The direct object answers the question what. Indirect object. Indirect object is the noun or pronoun which is affected by the action. An indirect object answers the question to whom. Read the following examples. Mr. Prabhat teaches us social science. Mr. Prabhat teaches what? Social science. So, it is the direct object. Mr. Prabhat teaches social science to whom? Us. So, it is the indirect object. Intransitive verb. An intransitive verb is a verb that does not require an object to complete its sense. Read the following examples. Fire burns. He runs. Birds are flying. In the above sentences, the verbs burns, runs, flying are intransitive verbs because they make sense by themselves. Always remember, certain verbs can be used both with and without objects. They are transitive and intransitive both. Read the following examples. Fire burns. He burnt a hole in his coat. Birds fly. I fly a kite. Turn to the left. Turn him out. The water is boiling. Please boil some water. The bell rang loudly. The peon rang the bell. She spoke for an hour. Always speak the truth. Main and auxiliary verbs. On the basis of their functions, verbs are classified into two categories: main verbs, auxiliary verbs. Main verbs. Main verbs express action, run, dance, eat, taught are main verbs. Auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs are helping verbs. They give information about the time of an action. Be, is, are, am, was, were, have, has, had, do, does, did, can, etc. are auxiliary verbs. Let's recapitulate. Verbs are doing or action words. They show what the subject does or is doing. They are usually placed after the subject, as the sun rises early in the morning. Our soldiers fought bravely. Kinds of verbs. Transitive, needs an object. She did her work well. Intransitive, doesn't need an object. She simply smiled. A transitive verb is quite often followed by two objects as she gave me a nice present. Indirect object answers to whom? Me. Nice present. Direct object. Note, some verbs can be used with or without an object as birds fly. I fly a kite on Sundays. Main and auxiliary verbs have three forms: present, past, past participle. Examples: go, went, gone, finish, finished, finished. Auxiliary verbs are helping verbs: be, is, am, are, was, were, have, has, had, do, does, did, can, etc.